mission starts now. Are you ready? Archer fire! Attack! Your mission starts now. Are you ready?